Hey, photographers and members only. I'm Charles Lewis, and welcome to this event about the 9 nevers, which is a word we very rarely ever want to say is never, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Joining me today is my son and business partner, Mr. Todd Lewis. Hi, Todd.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our members only event today. Excited to talk about, again, we don't like to use the word never very often, but in this case, we all pooled our thoughts and put together our list of, amongst us, the 9 things that we strongly feel no photographer who wants to make a good living being a lower volume, higher price studio should ever do in their photography business. And yet we see these things being done by 95% of the photographers out there that are wondering why they're not making a great living in photography. So we each of us worked hard. We each built our own list, and I'd say 75 to 80% of those were on all 3 of our lists. We all had very similar things, and there were a couple of things that each of us had that were a little bit different. And then we compiled that list into these 9 nevers.
Right on. Well said, Todd. And also joining us from the great state of Maine is Mr. Thomas Morelli, terrific photographer, fantastic business person. Hi, Tom.
I'd like to thank the Academy. Hi, guys. Great to be here. It is a beautiful day in Brewer, Maine, but I'd far rather be here with my 2 sunflower friends. They're like sunflowers that have opened up. And, of course, everyone else that's on here. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you, Tom. We're honored that you're here, and especially on such a lovely day. Great that you're taking the time to be here, but we also know how much you love getting to pass on the things that you know, the things that you've discovered, learned, and perfected in your photography business as well over your nearly 40 years in the photography business now. So we're honored to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Oh, well, you know what? I don't see any reason for us to not dive right in here, other than to remind those of you who are attending this live, which is what we always recommend because you can interact with us. Please do not be shy to ask us questions. Type into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel any question that you have, whether it's on what we're talking about right in that moment or it's something that you think of as we're going through the event here. If it's applicable at all to the subject at hand, we'll probably deal with that question right when it comes up. If not, we'll deal with it during the Q&A section that we've left at the end of the event. We are going to aim to get this done in 1 hour instead of an hour and a half today, because we feel that we can be very concise about what we're covering here, but still do it in great detail and get it done in about 60 minutes. So we're going to dive right in right now with number 1, the number 1 never. Now, these are in no particular order, so don't think that we're doing them in order of most important to least important, or most least important to most important, or whatever. All of these, in our opinions, are almost equally important. I don't know. I'm sure there are a few of them that we may say, well, I don't know. I want to pose that to you, gentlemen. If there's one that comes up that you go, I think this is the most important never of all of them, I want you to feel free to say it. But then I wouldn't be surprised if the next one that comes up, you might say, well, no, I think this one is the most important. Because we really did try to distill this down to the 9 absolute nevers, all of them being very important. And most importantly, all of them having an incredible effect, either positively or negatively, on your bottom line as a photographer, your profitability. Because if you don't make sure you're being profitable in your photography business, then you're not going to be able to keep doing what you love doing. You won't be able to supply this incredible service to your potential clients, your current clients, your VIPs. You'll go out of business, and that's not good for anyone. So profitability is not a naughty word. Profitability is not selling out. Profitability allows you to do what you love to do for a living and not have to have another job that you do for 40, 45, 50 hours a week, taking you away from doing what you love. So number 1 never is never, ever photograph anyone without meeting with them in person first. This one was on all 3 of our lists. This is a vital one. And the reason that I wanted to deal with this one first is because this is the one that I feel almost more than any of the others is one that photographers could look at and go, well, really, do I have to do that? I mean, I've never done it before, and I've had people be photographed, but why should I never meet with them in person before having the photographs taken? And just to be real clear, and then I'm going to turn it over to you two gentlemen, starting with Tom. What we mean by this is you will meet with them in person. This is before they've even necessarily decided to hire you as their photographer for what we call a design consultation or in-person chat. There's no cost, no obligation for that. This is a chance for you to meet with them in person and continue building that rapport, continue building that education of them as a potential client, and most importantly, to continue qualifying them, to determine for sure whether you feel they are the right type of client for you and the way you do business, and to make sure that you're the right photographer for them. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Why should you never photograph someone without meeting with them in person first?
Why do you ask? No, just kidding. I always answer a question.
I knew that was coming. I knew it.
It's just automatic. I couldn't help it. You know, if you look at any photographer who's struggling, in my opinion, almost every challenge they're facing has its roots. It's like a weed that's growing up and infiltrating their business. It has its roots in the fact that they didn't meet with the person in the first place, whether it's someone who's balking at their policies, their prices, their procedures, their type of photography. Everything stems from meeting with those people, because some people will decide not to work with you, and that's fine. You got to let them walk away. Some people will decide to work with you, but maybe the relatives have a question, and you're answering all that so that nobody on the day of photography is interfering, going, well, what about this? You've dealt with that, and they're into it. So bottom line here is most people will say, how do you get these great sales averages? One of the keys is starting with the basics, which is meeting with the people. The people that are on board are going to be heavily invested in what you're doing. That will not have your average being dragged down by people who go, I don't know, let me get a 4x6. So that's for me. I could not do business, and I will not do business without meeting with someone prior to any photography.
Right on. And I agree completely, Tom. And the way I look at this is that selling really, if you know, selling is not a bad word. We're not talking about tricking people or manipulating people, but selling is finding out what people want and helping them to get it. And the best way to find out what people really want is to be face to face with them in person. Could you find it out on the telephone? Probably, maybe, but you get it more detail and better if you're sitting across the table from someone and you're just chatting about it and having a friendly conversation. And plus, it gives you a chance to fill in all the little blanks of why you do things the way you do it. And if they hate that, they're going to say something, or at least they're going to, you know, marshmallow their way out of there. You know, they're going to say, well, I got to think about this. You know, I'm not sure I wanted to. And they either go away, or you handle that objection or that stall, and you find out what's going on. And it turns out that they would not have been a good client for you because they would have given you pain and suffering every step of the way. It's just, there's no other way I could ever imagine doing photography business without meeting with the client. And I mean meeting with a client, you know, with a prospect, not the whole family. Let's say you're going to do a family. We don't need to meet with every single human being we're going to photograph. We just have to meet with what I call the ringleader, you know, the person kind of in charge, and chat with her about everything that goes on and get her approval, and then collect a prepaid creation fee, things like that we'll talk about more in a minute.
All right. And the last thing I'll add to that very quickly before we move on to the number 2 never is that you just cannot replicate the rapport building, the trust building, all of that happens when you are in person with a human being.
Yep.
Over 80% of human communication are the things that are in addition to the words that we say, things that have nothing to do with the words we say, the body language, the eye contact, the volume of which we're speaking. So meeting with them in person is a vital part. Again, if you want to be a lower volume, higher price studio and not work yourself to death and work with the types of clients you want to work with, then that is a absolute must. Never number 2, never present images in an online gallery. Only do in-person sales. Okay, I know we'll get resistance, but Todd, everybody else does it. But Todd, all my clients want that. Well, first of all, neither of those things are fact. Neither of those things are true. If the clients you're currently working with complain if you don't do that or whatever, then you're not working with the right types of clients and you're probably not making the right kind of money. And everybody out there does not do this. Only the people typically who are trying to be higher volume, lower price, or the people who are trying to be low volume, high price and aren't making it work as well as they would like to. So what we mean by in-person sales is doing projection. Those of you who have been members of ours for a long time understand what we mean by that. Presenting the images in a frame over a sofa with a projector, with your laptop, either in your studio space or in the client's home. This works better than any other method of sales that we have ever seen. And we've tried an awful lot of them. And Tom, you have as well. This time I'm going to have Dad, you start first, and then leave some time for Tom to chime in on this very important never as well.
Well, it goes back to what your beliefs are. You have to, in your core of who you are, because in the core of who I am, I believe that people get the most enjoyment out of a portrait that is displayed proudly on their wall. That's what I feel is the key to this thing. You can put it in an album, yeah, and the photographs are cute, yeah, but how many times have you looked at your wedding album? Let's be honest about this. So I really believe, as an artist and a craftsperson who really believes in what he's doing, I really believe that the maximum enjoyment is when it's on a wall in their home where they can walk and live through their home and glance up at that portrait and get chills and remember what it is that they're working so hard for and what life truly is all about. And I believe that. Therefore, it is my responsibility to present the images to my clients in such a way that they will be able to visualize it, to see it. People, you and I, we take this for granted. We do this every day. We can understand and visualize what that portrait will look like as a sofa size image over the sofa. We can visualize, but the clients can't. So we have to do something where they can see it, because you sell what you show and you want to sell what you believe in. Therefore, you project, because then they can visibly see it and get all excited about it and see how much enjoyment they're going to get. Tom?
Chuck just gave you the armor to put on of confidence, because a lot of people say, well, when I meet with my client and I tell them this is how they're going to see, I'm kind of shy about how they're going to let them know. And once you realize how valuable this is to you and the client, you actually will be proud of it. And from a real world standpoint, when I meet with people, an awful lot have told me, I like this a lot better, because I had a place that sent me a gallery, we got confused, couldn't really see the images. When I got my photographs back, it didn't quite look like they did on the screen. There's all kinds of negative reasons, but people don't know how to vocalize that, or they don't have someone talk to about it. So once you're ready with all the benefits to the client of doing this and you're talking about it, they'll buy in. And if they don't, again, that's someone that if they want to walk and, you ask that question, is the way you see your images the biggest reason you're going to select a photographer? And if they say yes, well, great, okay, that's too bad, but you let them walk if they feel like that's it. So be confident in this, because it will just change your bottom line and you'll work a lot less and earn a lot more net income, which is what's important.
Yeah, I always remember Donald Jack telling me, in order to be successful, you have to be willing to send some people away. And as hard as that is to do, especially if you're struggling, you're not quite earning the kind of money you want to earn, it's very difficult to send some people away. But how many times you're going to get burned before you decide that that's true? And yes, I've got to be willing to send some people away, because every time you make an exception, every time you change something just for that one person, that client, you end up getting burned.
Yep.
All right, number 3, never ever buy new equipment unless absolutely necessary. Now, the challenge with this one is what we would all agree means absolutely necessary. That's the challenge.
Right.
What I mean by absolutely necessary, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tom here first, because this was on his list as a very important one, is the way I look at absolutely necessary is Is it a must in order for me to command the dollars I'm asking for? Do I honestly feel and believe that no one will invest that amount of money unless I have a better lens, a better camera body, a better set of lights, a better tripod, whatever it is? Or do I really understand and realize, when I'm being completely honest with myself, that that has nothing to do with it? Because a great photographer can take a great photograph with just about any camera. Now, yes, when you're making them adequate sizes, when they're going to be 30 by 40s on a wall in a home, a 40 by 50, even a 24 by 30, yes, we do want to be concerned about resolution. But I mean, unless you're using a really, really old camera, right? I'm pretty sure that the camera you're using will work just fine. The lenses you're using will work just fine. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you first on this one. And why was this such an important one for to have on this list of 9 nevers?
Yeah, again, as I get feedback from photographers, both local and nationally, internationally, I read forums and posts. One of the biggest challenges they have is their debt. They invest in all this equipment and they go into business and they've just spent $30,000 on the latest and greatest, and they're broke and they're trying to make payments, and they're putting some of the stuff online going, I bought this lens because somebody told me I needed it, but it was $1,600 and I don't even know how to use it, or I haven't had to use it because I don't have any clients. So I can honestly tell you, in my 40 plus years in photography, I think I have purchased maybe 2 items brand new. It was my first 35mm camera in 1975. That was before I started. And then recently, last year, I had a job that I needed a flash, a strobe that would mount on my camera that was fairly portable. It had a lot of watt seconds, and it was about $600. It was the only thing available, and I had to have it because it was new. But the job I was doing was paying me almost 10 times that, so it was worth it. And plus, I still have it, and I've used it in a lot of other jobs as well. So it has paid for itself the first job. Other than that, you can go on eBay and anywhere else that you can think of and find some really good used equipment, 3, 4, 5 years old, that's in perfectly good shape, that your clients don't care. Your clients don't care. As long as it looks good, they don't care. Chuck?
Yeah, I remember whenever we talk about this subject, I go back to a session which happened way before you were working with me, Todd. And we were out, I remember right where we were, the location, I remember everything about it. And I'm doing these photographs, and it was sort of almost a beginning of a reflections type of wedding that most of the people that have been VIPs with us on the online vault will know what that was. And I had never met the fiance, the groom. And so we're out there doing these photographs and having a great old time. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, man, look at that camera. Man, look at that thing you got on the front of it. Man, you must, if you just would get a little bit nicer, because I had this cardboard thing on the front that I made myself and stuff, and it did the job. And he said, man, if you would just get a little bit better one, a little, can't you buy? You could really be good. I just was so caught off guard. No one has ever said anything like that to me before. And he said, man, if you just get rid of that cardboard thing and you could really be good. And his fiance just kind of elbowed him with anger, because she didn't like what he had said. But I'll just never forget it, and you have to forget it. I did not care. I did not go out and buy a special vignetter. I did not. I continued using the thing that I had carefully constructed that worked perfectly well. You don't need the latest, greatest, most modern thing. And I'll bet you'll probably never have anybody say to you what that guy said to me. I'll just never forget it.
Right. And lastly, on this point, the important reason for me always comes down to that money is better invested somewhere else, i.e. in marketing yourself. The problem is not your equipment. The problem is not your location. The problem is not the economy. The problem is your market. You're not doing enough marketing. You're not doing the right marketing. You're not willing to put a little bit of money. It doesn't have to be a ton, but any money that you would invest in equipment, just make the point right now. No, what I've got is great. For the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, I am not going to buy any other equipment. I'm going to put that money instead into my marketing. Then when you have the discretionary funds coming in and you want that new shiny thing, you can now rationalize it. You can now afford it because all of the other bills are paid.
Yeah, and the key is when you start out and you start hearing us talk about wall portraits, and you're thinking, yeah, that's really what I want to do. I really believe in my heart and soul that the clients will get the most enjoyment out of having it on the wall. I better go out and buy a really high megapixel. No, 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 no. Because it's going to take you some time to refine your sales skills, your telephone skills, get everything really good before someone actually ends up investing in one of those and giving you money for it. And when that starts to appear, it's happening, then you go out and get a higher megapixel pre-owned camera.
Number 4, never take advice from someone who is not where you want to be. This seems so obvious, and yet it's not. Here's where people tend to take advice. They tend to take advice from people that they want to take advice from. Whether they know they're successful or not, it's just, I want to believe what this person's saying, or I want to, without ever understanding whether they've been around for a while, whether this stuff is tried or true, and they tend to they think they want to take advice from the new, shiny, brand new person, which, why would you ever do that? Why would you ever take advice from someone who's just getting started? They don't know. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're taking advice from someone who is where you want to be. Someone that's been doing this we've been doing this for over 40 years. My dad over 45 years, me nearly 40 years, Tom almost 40 years. That is a track record of success. That is showing that there's longevity. That is showing that we can survive and thrive through recessions, through economy changes, through lots of competition, through disrupting changes in the industry. Those are the people you want to take advice from, and not just in the photographic industry, looking for people outside the industry, the marketers who have been around doing this a lot, who have been, doing things for Fortune 500 companies that have incredible testimonials that can be verified and have, those are the people you want to be learning from. Dad, I mean, those who are watching this right now, they're already understanding that. They're here. So I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to give it to you first before Tom chimes in as well.
Yeah, just be careful not to listen to somebody who's loud, who seems to be really confident, who really seems to know what they're talking about, but they're not where you want to be. But they sure sound, they really sound committed. They're yelling and screaming about something, and they really believe in it in their heart and soul, but they're not where you want to be. You got to be really careful because they're not where you want to be.
And it's hard to not get sucked in by that stuff because it seems compelling. It feels compelling. You're like, boy, if they're that confident, they got to know what they're talking about. But confidence can be faked. Track records can't. Tom?
Yeah, there's a person online on Facebook that's a well-known photographer, and this person has quite a problem with people that are doing workshops and things that absolutely, she goes in like an advocate and tries to warn people. I checked out this person. They aren't doing any photography. They're just teaching it. They've never been a photographer. They've never known the success of photography, but they're just sort of cool. They're sort of the cool person of the week. And so people glom on and go, oh, I want to learn from this person. I want to be cool like this person, him or her. And so this person's out there kind of saying what we're saying, which is, check it out. And if it's not somebody with a track record that you'd like to have, then why bother to take advice from them? Because obviously their advice is not valuable to you. You want to look and say, what kind of lifestyle do I want? Is that person living that lifestyle for real? When I used to go speak at conventions, main professional photographer convention and other ones, we'd always start with that. And a couple of them, I literally blurred out my last couple of 1040s and said, this is the studio's net income, just so you'll know. So if you want to leave now, if that's not high enough for you, great. People are like, wow, I wish I was doing that in many cases. And I say, okay, we'll stick around and we'll talk about how to do that. So I'm not just making this stuff up and hoping it works for you.
Right on.
Yep, so important. And so again, take advice from people who are where you want to be, not just the latest, newest. And that doesn't mean that you can't learn from people who are new. I'm not saying that at all. But someone with track record, someone that is where you want to be already, now you're doing what is called modeling. You are taking somebody who has already had success in the area that you want to have success in. They've had the kind of success that you wanted to have. And then with their permission, you're modeling them. You're saying, okay, how did you do this? I want to do it the same way. And somebody who does not have the track record, they simply cannot do that. All right. So that is never number 4. Never take advice from someone who is not where you want to be. Never number 5. This is a big one too. This one almost got bumped for a couple of other nevers, but I felt this was too important to not have on here, because this is so easy, not only for photographers who are just getting started, to break this never, to do this never, to not avoid it, but even photographers who have been in business for a long time, and that is never ever change your policies or the way that you do business based on anyone other than yourself. And the reason that I think it's very easy for people to lose this one is, number one, they think, well, gosh, I mean, I'm getting a lot of people that are complaining about my prices, so I should lower my prices. Well, no, if you've been studying with us for a long time, you know that people should be complaining about your prices. Otherwise, your prices are too low. But you wouldn't know that if you're just getting started out. So you think, well, everyone else is saying my price is too high, I got to lower them. But no, you know what you deserve to get paid. You know what your worth is. You know that there are people out there that will invest what you're asking for. Stick to that. But the other reason that it's easy for people to mistake this or to commit this never in their business is because at some point we were told that the customer is always right. At some point we were told, incorrectly, by the way, that the customer or client is always right. Now, I understand where the heart of that comes from, and the heart is in the right place, and that is always treat your clients with respect. Always do your best, again, to find out what the client wants and help them to get it. As my dad said earlier, that's the definition of a good salesperson in any business. Find out what they want and help them to get it. But don't do it at the expense of saying that something is right when you know that it's not, because we are the experts. We are the ones that live and breathe photography each and every day, not our potential clients. So when a client says to you, well, look, I just want all the digitals and I just want you to send them to me over Google Drive, and that's the right way to do it. Well, no, it's not the right way for what we're doing, for the types of clients that we're working with. It's not the right thing for those clients. It's not the right thing for us, knowing how we want to run our business. So they're wrong in that instance. So don't change your policies based on the flavor of the week, which is usually a negative flavor. It's not often chocolate. It's often, barf flavored ice cream, right? When most people are saying these things, it's because they're complaining they don't like the way you're doing business because it's not the way they want you to do business. Well, that's fine. Then maybe we're not the right photographer for them. Tom, I'll turn it over to you first here, and then Dad will go to you. Why never change your policies unless it's because you believe it's the right thing to do?
First of all, next time I go to Dairy Queen, I'm going to read that menu very carefully. I said chocolate, not barf. Talk about mistakes people have made. I did over the years, especially when I was in my younger years and a little less confident, have people's tone of voice, their attitude. I had one guy go, well, if you're not going to do proofs instead of projection, because it was opaque back then, it was pre-digital, I wouldn't work with you. Now, this gentleman was from a family that had a lot of money to invest. I was seeing stars in my eyes. So I did a proof book. I made 4x5s, put them in a proof book, and took them to him. He never ordered anything. They just kept the proof book. I was like, I think I got a deposit of like $100 or something really cheesy, and I said, well, I'll go towards your $5,000 order, which never came. And I hounded him for like a year, and finally he's like, we're not interested. We got this. This is all we wanted. Wow. Taught me a lesson that don't let someone intimidate you into changing policies. And he lost out because they were beautiful portraits. Right. A large fireplace could have been there. The client lost. I made up the money elsewhere over the years. I don't even miss it, but it's always bothered me that I let them do that. I had a few cases where people have talked me into changing things. I've had other photographers when I was younger say, why do you do this? I do this. And then I find out they're doing that. They're not really making a good living at it anyway. So if you got a system in place, what is the right thing to do? Don't let people sway you from that. Sometimes well-meaning people that know you and love you will say, well, honey, I don't know if people are going to go for that idea. Well, unless they're in this industry and they know the system, you can thank them for their concern and then do what you're supposed to do. Chuck?
I agree with everything you said. Well said, Tom.
Yeah, and this is a lovely tie-in to number 4, which is don't take advice from people who are not where you want to be. Well, your clients aren't when it comes to photography businesses, they're not where you want to be. They're not even in the industry. So don't take advice from them. Don't change your policies based on, because we know, again, everything that we are talking about in this program, in all of our programs throughout our teachings and on the online vault, and every webinar, seminar, consulting call that we do, it is always to do two things and do both of those things. Number one, make sure that you are able to make the type of living that you want and deserve to make. And number two, make sure that your clients are thrilled, that what you are doing is a service that is worthy of you making the money that you want and deserve. And we will never do one of those things without the other, because they have to go in tandem. So this serves the client as well as it serves you. Stick to your guns, because you know what ultimately is going to be right for the target market clients that you're going after and the type of business that you want to have. Never change your policies for any reason other than because you want to do it, or because somebody that you are studying with that is where you want to be and that you trust and believe in is saying you should change this in order to have the business of your dreams. Number 6, never send your price lists out or put them on your website. Dad, I'm going to turn this one right over to you.
Well, a lot of people we talk with during our everyday living and existing in photography business, a lot of the other photographers say, oh, I would never go with somebody who didn't clearly say what their prices are right on their website, no questions, listed right there. I would never work with that. Well, the thing that that person is forgetting is that he or she is not their target market. Okay, just because you personally have some kind of a hiccup with someone that doesn't, I mean, no. Because with photography, see, photography, this is really special, because photography, how do you talk about it? Well, we know, and it's on the vault, you know, if you want to know how to talk about it without talking about the investment and the fees, just go there and look up our example of a website for a photographer, which is right there on the online vault, and it'll give you lots and lots of words. But you know, just because this person thinks you have to talk, it's all numbers. It's all numbers. You know, it's this size, blah, blah, blah. It's garbage. You don't want to talk about it this way. This is something that
Not
is
at this point in the process.
No,
right.
This is something that is looking for warm, fuzzy, romantic families and couples, and they love their children, and it's warm, fuzzy stuff. And that's not the investment and the sizes and the finishes and all that garbage stuff that we'll get to when it's important, but not right this minute. You don't know. No. Talk about the warm, the fuzzy, the relationships, and then get them to pick up the phone and call you. Don't go to a website. Just pick up the phone and we'll chat.
Right.
Tom?
And the reason this is so important and works so well is because we're not talking about dodging the question. We're not talking about we're going to hide our fees until we've created the photographs, and then they come in to pick them up and we go, that'll be $20,000. We're not doing that. Of course not. What we're doing is we're not putting the cart before the horse. You got to have that horse going first, pulling that cart, and the horse is the emotion, the decisions of why they want to have these photographs created. After they've determined, yes, I like you as a photographer, I like everything you're saying, this is the type of stuff that I want. Now we can start giving them a ballpark figure, which is the first thing we'll do on the telephone. Then when we have them for the design consultation, we'll start pointing at photographs in our space and saying, that's our sofa size, it's X number of dollars, could you see that proudly displayed over your home, you know, or whatever it is. And then of course during the sales presentation, then we get into the real details. So we're not going to be hiding this from them. It's just knowing when is the time to get those to them. And it is absolutely not at the beginning of the process. You're going to be losing people right and left and leaving a ton of money on the table. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then we have a great question that came in from Shirley about this exact subject. So Tom.
All right, years ago, before I knew better, I used to mail out price lists. This would be back in the very early 80s. I don't mean when I was in my 80s, I mean the years. And those haven't arrived yet. I hope they do. But and I found that it was both at wedding shows, Nobody ever booked. When I gave them a price list off, they thank you, because of two things. Number one, some people thought this person doesn't charge nearly enough. They can't be very good. Or, well, these prices look outrageous. And so it depended on the person. The same person two people looking at the same price list could have those two divergent thoughts because they didn't have enough information yet. You just can't put what everybody needs to know. And one of those things, and Chuck and I learned this from Chuck years ago, and I used to laugh, but I used to do it when I do a wedding consult. We talk about this, and I'd lean in and I'd say, most important thing, do you like me? Because you're going to be working with me all day. And they couldn't put that on a price list. If you like me, it's an extra $100. So you need to build rapport. There's so much before coming to the investments, and that comes, of course, at the consultation where you start talking about that. So if someone doesn't want to work with you because you won't send out a price list or won't show it on your website, the possibility is raised, at least, it's not total, that they won't be someone that you'll end up working with, that they'll be happy with you and you're happy with them. Doesn't always happen that way. So there's ways to get around that that work fine, but just sending them out is a waste of time. And I've done it, trust me. I printed thousands of price lists that went nowhere.
Yep.
All right. And our question from Shirley, great question, Shirley. She asks, how do you handle it when the client wants to take a photograph of your price list with their phone? So during the consultation. So what Shirley's referring to, for anyone who doesn't know, is during the design consultation in-person chat that we talked about at the beginning of this program, that you never want to do a session without doing that first. We will bring out our price list, and we will have that, and it's printed on a nice parchment paper, very beautifully done. It's in a leather-bound folio. So it's very clear that this does not leave the studio. This is not something we're giving them. It's something we're going over with them right there so they can ask questions and we can find out if this is in the ballpark for them and so forth. Well, what do you do if they want to take a photograph of that to take home with them? Dad?
Personally, I'd let them do it. I don't think that is the time and the place to argue about whether or not they can take a photograph of my price list. I don't think that would be beneficial to me as a business person and to my reputation.
I agree.
I have never had that happen, but that's a great question, Shirley.
It is. Tom, have you ever had that happen?
I have not. Now, Chuck, in the PR packet, there is a little place, I remember learning this from you, where somebody's, what if I tell my husband if I want to go, you could jot down something, say, well, if you want to tell him this wall size is this. So just so you remember, if I've never had that happen, but it also is, to me, a red flag of someone saying, well, I'm assuming if you're going to photograph this, you're going to show this to somebody. And, well, I'm going to show my husband. Well, what do you think he'll say? It'll lead you to those objection covering opportunities. So that is just another objection. It's a marshmallow, as Chuck would put it. They want to photograph this. Well, there must be a reason. Can I ask you why you're going to photograph it? But I'm in a nice way. Don't stop them, but just say, you're going to show this to somebody, and maybe I can help with that.
Right, because, nice. I mean, Tom just said that perfectly.
Right.
Because you don't just stop there. She takes a photograph and you stop. You continue asking questions, and perfect example, Tom. Very good.
Number 7, never show a photograph in your marketing without an accompanying testimonial. Testimonials are vital. Every photographer underutilizes them, in my opinion, unless they are dramatically well trained. You should have an accompanying testimonial from that client that is in the photograph with every photograph that you use, no matter what marketing medium you're using, with the possible slight exception. I always want to point out when there's an exception in our case, and that would be exhibits. When we have an exhibit out there, we don't have a testimonial most of the time under every photograph in that exhibit, because that is a little bit of a different animal. It's not direct response advertising in the truest sense of the word. Now, what we will have is on that exhibit, we will have lift cards that somebody can take if they like what they see there and they're interested in more. And guess what's on that lift card? Photographs with testimonials. So Tom, let's turn it over to you first. Do you agree with this, Never? I think you probably do, because I think you might have had this on your list as well. I'm not sure.
You bet. Yes. I'll put it in a non-photographic category. Whenever I see anything that's advertised, whether it's I got an Omaha steak mailer today, there's always testimonials. I bought the filet mignon package and it was fantastic, and their burgers are the best. So these are testimonials that the clients are saying, and not the business. So I can't
Wait,
come.
Omaha Steak is still around?
Yeah.
That's still a thing?
Look at
Holy
that.
cow! I was
Yeah.
actually wondering this. Like a few weeks back, I was talking to somebody. I was like, are Omaha Steaks still a thing? They're still around.
And it's not cheap. We use locally sourced, but that's a different story. It makes me want to go have a burger right now. But anyway, the idea is that let other people, I'll say, brag about you, if you want to put that way.
Mhm.
You don't want to sound like you're bragging. You don't want to sound like you're puffing out your chest. You let other people say it. I remember years ago, our band I played in showed up to a contest, and all these guys were up there saying, "Hey, we're the best band here. We're going to kick everybody's butt." We didn't say a word. We let the music and the onstage performance do the talking, and we won. And people were like, "Whoa, you guys weren't talking. You were letting your music do the talking." And in this case, let your business and your clients do the talking for you. Much more powerful. And the way we do it, of course, someone can pick up the phone and go, "Is this Shirley Smith in Brewer?" "Yes, it is." "I saw a testimonial." "Yeah, I said that." "Oh, you'd love him." And it's rare that someone calls somebody like that, but their name and where they live is on there with their permission. And it is, I don't think, any more powerful endorsement than that.
That's right. I totally agree. So I'm just not adding anything, Todd,
Okay.
because I totally agree, Tom.
All right. So yeah, and what Tom said is so important. It's that credibility of your testimonials. That should be on here in parentheses at the end of that, is with credibility. Don't just put, this incredible glowing testimonial and then it's from Susie C, the letter C, or from C Smith. That's not enough, because you can look at the going, you just made that up, didn't you? That's made up. That doesn't even sound. But when it's from Susie Smith in Grand Rapids, Michigan, right? That has immediate credibility, because people know, hey, if I wanted to, I could go check up on that. But again, they almost never, ever do. Okay.
If I throw one thing real quick, always have your ears open for testimonials. Your clients are giving them to you all the time at every step. Now, Chuck, for example, said, "I agree with Tom 100% with what he said." I could snip that if I wanted to and say, "Chuck Lewis says Tom Morelli," So
I agree with everything Tom Morelli says.
That's right. Yeah, my wife might not agree, but you guys are my friends. Anyway.
There you go. Nice. All right, number 8. Never do a photographic session without a prepaid creation fee collected. Dad, I'm going to turn this one over to you.
When you're getting started, because I went through that, I was broke. I had almost no money at all. And I started with just about nothing, no reputation in the community, no nothing. And you're scared, and when you're scared, you make bad decisions. And you want a client. So you're afraid to charge for that, for having this photography created, because you think it might deter some people. Well, it might deter people who aren't willing to put much money into it at all anyway. But what it says is so much more important. When you charge for we call it the creation fee, and it covers the time involved in planning and creating the images.
And
it's not a deposit.
Yeah.
Yep, it's not a deposit. It doesn't go towards the finished photographs, but it's the best X you'll ever invest, because it allows us to take the time and do it right. Now, there are a lot of people out there that will make a great deal of sense to, okay? And maybe a few that it won't. But the key is, it says your time is valuable. Your time is your most valuable asset you have. You only have so many. You realize you only have so many hours left to live? We don't know what the hours are. Hopefully it's a whole ton, but that's the only thing we've got as an asset, really, frankly. So you've got to let people know that you value that time, and that you want to create something that is really custom designer created for them. And you're going to take whatever it takes to figure out how to do it, where to do it, help them with their clothing, help them with everything. Designer portraiture, that's what we're going to do. And that is it's perfect, because it non-verbally says that you value your time and your clients value your time, but it also reserves their time, so they're going to show up. Tom?
Have you, anybody out there, ever gotten what we call ghosted, which is a more of a dating term now, where you talk to a client and they're all excited and yes, and we'll come in Tuesday at 4 and they never show. Well, the reason for that, at least in terms of doing the actual photography session, is they don't have any earnest money. They haven't paid their creation fee, so they don't really have any skin in the game. That's the best way I can put it. When they pay that creation fee, it is another mental as well as physical and financial step. I'm in. I'm working with you, Tom. At a wedding show, if someone gives you a deposit, way too much to go into here, but this Chuck taught me this and it worked fantastically. Before they moved on, often I had a deposit that I would not even cash their check till the next week till we met, but they were already going around thinking, well, I kind of got a photographer, Morelli. Now try to, talk me out of it, next photographer. So this earnest money really lets them know. And it's like business cards. People say, do you have business cards? I'm like, I give them a blank one. I say, write your name and number and I'll call you tomorrow. We could chat about it. That scares people in one way because they're like, oh, I didn't really mean, I was just being nice saying I want to be photographed sometime. I didn't really want to. Okay, I'll save the card then. I don't print cards anymore. But when they write that down, it means, yeah, I'm in. Give me a call. Let's chat about this. Let's do this. It's the same thing. Getting that creation fee paid means I'm working with you, Tom. I believe in what you said. Let's go for it.
All right. Well, great points, everyone. And again, don't change that policy. If somebody complains, don't change. See how these are all tied together? It's a chain, and you're only strong as the weakest link in that chain, right? You skip any of these steps, and that chain falls apart. I just can't recommend that highly enough. We're coming up to our last of the 9 nevers, and this is a last minute call for any other questions you might have. Shirley had a great question earlier. I'm so glad we got to answer that. If you're on here live and you have any other questions, now's the time to get them in, because once we're done with the number 9 of the 9 nevers, we'll wrap up. If there are no questions, that's fine as well. It means that we're obviously being as clear as possible, but we don't want to leave any question unturned. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So go ahead and get those questions in right now as we move into our number 9, the final never of the 9 nevers in your photography business. That is, never speak ill of other photographers for any reason. This one's an easy one to ignore. It's an easy one to not think of. It's an easy one to say, yeah, but there is no but. Never speak ill of another photographer. Now, that doesn't mean you have to trumpet them and say they're great if you don't feel that they are, or to say anything that's just don't talk about them. It's that old thing that my parents drilled into my head that was probably drilled into their heads when they were young, and that is, if you can't think of something nice to say, don't say anything. We don't live in a culture like that anymore, it seems, do we? And that's a sad thing, because now everybody, whenever they have a beef, whenever they not only go online and say something bad, they say something terrible. They say horrible things. Now, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be like that. No one should want to. I don't even think the people that are doing it truly want to be like that. They're doing it to lash out for other reasons. There are other issues going on. But if you can't think of something nice to say, don't say anything. That's the culture we should be living in. And guess why? Because when your clients hear you saying something negative about somebody else, how does that make you look? Think of the last time you heard somebody saying something horrible on social media about somebody else. You probably looked at the person that was saying it in a negative light as well. Well, you don't want that happening in your business. Absolutely not. So if you can't think of something nice to say, don't say anything. If somebody comes right out and asks you, that we'll get to that in a second here, because I do think that's an important point. Is, what if somebody comes right out and says, well, I met with so-and-so, what do you think of them? We'll get to that here in just a second. But Tom, I want to turn it over to you first. Why, in your opinion, should you never, ever speak ill of your competition in any way?
Yeah, and I have two sides of the coin here. Number one, there was a fairly successful photographer in my area for years who was specializing in weddings, quite high-end weddings. But his personality was such that people would tell him, I'm going to see another photographer, I'm just going around. And whether it was me or someone else, but I had people come to me and tell me this and book with me because of this attitude. He would lean back and he'd say, well, if you're going to go see blah, you might as well have nobody at all. And he was, being serious. Well, I mean, that's about as bad as it gets. And so people would come to me angrily. And if I was even close to what they're looking for, they're like, I'm going to show this person, I'm going to write you a deposit today for my wedding. And I'm going to call him and say, Morelli's great, I'm working with him. So you by saying, you might turn someone off by saying anything negative at all. So most photographers, there's so many now, if people even ask me, I'm not even familiar with them. So I'll just say, I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with their work, but make sure you ask the following questions if you do want to, and then redirect back to what we're talking about. And I know Chuck has a great answer. I learned from him, but I'll let him bring that up as far as, and if you don't, I'll bring it up because it was one of the best lines and I've used it for years. But just keep focusing on what you can do for the client, redirect away from that immediately, and just keep working on what you're working on, which is positive news. And the last thing I'll say is I have had some very good friends in my area that were excellent photographers. And if I was booked and someone said, have you heard of so-and-so? I did take the initiative and said, yeah, if you can get so-and-so to do your wedding or whatever, you're very lucky. They're excellent photographers. Give them a call, because that was reciprocal. I got many calls like that for me where they called that other person first, they were booked, and they sent them to me. So you can develop good relationship with other photographers that you know and trust.
Right on. Yeah, Paul Linwood Giddings, one of my favorite people. He had a huge, huge impact on my life and my business. I went to his last class he ever taught in his life at Winona School in 1972, I think it was, at the end of the fall, or else it was 73. But anyway, he always said, if someone asks about somebody else or anything, I say, oh, yes, he does interesting work. Or, yo, yes, she does very interesting work. That's all you say. Don't
I
say
love
anything
that.
else. Yeah. And I respect him so much that I figure, hey, if it's good enough for Paul, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, that again, it reflects more negatively on you when you say negative things of other people than it does on the people that you're saying negative things about. Now, I do want to answer the question though of, but what if somebody comes right out and asks you about another photographer? Well, now, Dad, you sort of answered it right there by saying, well, he does very interesting work. But if somebody literally, this is a tough question, and I don't know if you've ever gotten this or if this happens very often. I already know it does not happen very often at all. But if somebody came right out and said, you know, they're meeting with you, design consultation, or they're on the phone and they say, yeah, I just got out of a meeting with John Jones Photography, and he just had, you know, he just had horrible things to say about people, and I don't know, you know, do you know anything about him, and would you recommend that I work with him? What would you say to that, Tom or Dad?
I would say, no, I don't know enough about him in detail to give you any real recommendation. I guess my recommendation would be, you know, how do you feel about him? How do you feel about her? How do you feel about what she says? And how do you feel about her work? You know.
That's the best answer I think you possibly have. Tom, we'll see if you have anything you want to add to that, but I think that's right on the money. It's not about, you know, how do you feel? Well, because you're already getting an idea. If they're bringing this up, you already know how they feel. They have reservations. So, you know, and that is the great way to do it. You didn't say anything negative. Just, well, how do you feel? I don't have enough information. I can't really say, but how do you feel? Tom, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's a great point. The asking questions, always answer a question with a question, because over the years I did have a few occasions on wedding photography where someone said, you know, a friend of mine had photographer X there, and that person left early. They didn't even stay as long as they wanted to stay. You know, what do you know about that? And I'll say, you know, I will turn that around rather than say anything negative about that person. Say the same thing. I'm not familiar with that person's business or work, but that is very important, isn't it? That someone stays committed as long as they're supposed to with you, and that's what we do. And we just turn it around into another benefit to them, and not dwell on the name of the business or the other person. Just keep turning it back around to what the benefit is to them to work with you.
Yep.
Yep, there you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. That is the 9 nevers in your photography business. The things to avoid at all costs, with, you know, no exception, really. I mean, when you make the exceptions, that's when the problems happen. So we don't have any other questions that have come in. However, we do have a comment from Shirley who says, these are great reminders. Thank you so much, gentlemen. You're very welcome, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley. And thanks to all of our members who have been joining us live here today, and to those who are watching the recording of this on the Online Vault. Keep coming back to the Online Vault on a regular basis for everything that's being added that's new there, and the things that are on there that you might have missed. The things, Whatever question you have in your photography business, whatever challenge you're having to deal with, there's something on the online vault, I feel confident, that will help you solve that problem. And remember, if you can't find it by typing it in the search bar, if you can't find it by going through the categories, there's a spot right on there where you can ask me to find the answer for you. Say, hey, here's the problem I'm having. I couldn't find it on the online vault. Is there something on there to help me? I will go through there and I'll find it for you, because I know that online vault like I know the back of my hand, and this is it right here. And I know it really well. I don't have to look at it, but I know what it looks like. All right. Yep. So with that, gentlemen, Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you for any last minute words for our members. And then Dad, you can have the final word.
Yeah, Todd, that kind of reminds me, there was a large store in our area, a big discount store, that said, if you can't find it here, you don't need it. Yeah, right? So it reminds me, if you're looking for this information, you can't find it, Todd can't find it, you probably didn't need it anyway, because we cover it all and then some. But hey, it's great to be here. People wonder why my business runs like a top, I guess. Remember those little things? It's a toy. Might not remember those, but I come in every day and hit the light switch, and I know exactly what's going to happen, other than I get to work with unique people every day. That's part of what I love about this business. So the challenges that are here are all met by the system we work in, and it's fun. That's why I still, after 4 decades here, love it, profitable, having a great time, and hope to keep doing it as a foreseeable future, as long as I want to do it. So thanks for being here. You're in the right place.
Yeah, and thank you, Tom. Appreciate it very much. Your time is very valuable, and I really appreciate your contributions today. Good stuff. And for me, I just want to say that your time is your biggest asset. So don't waste your time fumbling with running a photography business. Yes, your photography might be very good, but don't waste your time trying to figure out how to run your business. We've already done it for you. If you want to do a relatively low volume of work for a relatively significant investment, and still have life left over so that you can spend time with your loved ones, time with your family, take the trips that you deserve, have a life, then just follow our model. Follow the model, try it and see how you like it. And you're going to see how well it works, and you'll just grow and grow and grow from there. It was an honor to be here with you today, and we'll talk to you again next time.